You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
And away we go for the Tuesday edition of Leafs Morning Take presented by Betano. It's Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill. What's going on, Rosie?
Tuesday. Yeah, not much, dude. Excited to have Coco on today and break it down a little for the Philly game.
Yeah, we got Carlo Colaiacovo of TSN, former Leaf, former Flyer, coming on in about 30 minutes or so. Wanted to get your thoughts off the top. You were in Calgary last night. You took in the Flames game against Alex Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals, and I just thought it was perfect that Ovi put on a clinic. He scored from his patented 1T spot where he took one stride over 20-second gap, but he still scores a goal. We all know it's coming. What was it like to see it in person?
Yeah, it was cool, man. He was on the power play. I'm sitting there with my buddy, and he goes, and the puck's just sliding over to where he scored 600 of them. And it's like, why is he so open? And then clap bomb short side. It was just like, good Lord. And the other one was a nice tip, but no, he sure doesn't work. Like, he's just good. He doesn't have to work his ass off. It seemed like he played about 8 minutes, but he got up to like 16 with some power plays. And yeah, he's just impressive, man. He got 2 last night right in front of us in Calgary and took it down in kind of a sloppy game on Monday at the Saddle Dome.
It was the last game of the trip for the Capitals. Of course, they'll be home on Wednesday to face off with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Work smarter, not harder, something like that when it comes to Alex Ovechkin. Did he point at you after one of the goals, though? Because you're his boy, right?
We were watching in warm up there, and then my buddy was like, I wonder if he's going to recognize you from that guy in the casino at 3 a.m. But no events were had.
Wait a second. He would recognize you from that, but not the guy he played against multiple times in the NHL?
That's what we were wondering, quite possibly. I remember I went to hit him once. It was like, I was going to go hit him once, and he like dumped the puck, and I was going to go finish, and I was like, oh, it's kind of like not blindsidey, but he doesn't really see it coming, and I don't want this to be like a huge deal, so I kind of let off. He knew I was there the whole time. He reverse hit me, and it was just like hitting a concrete wall with a Mack truck connected to the bottom half, and I was like, oh, and it was like, I'm like going backwards, and I'm like, fuck, I don't want to get rocked by Ovi, so I wrapped my hand around his chest and like brought him down with me, and then he looked up like furious and went, the fuck are you doing? And then skated off, and I was like, I'm gonna get off the ice now.
Yeah, that guy early on in his career specifically, man, like the guy was a train, but he still will lay out a guy if he catches a guy, which is incredible considering he's getting up there a bit in age. Like he'll still lay a guy out. Like, how invested are you in this whole race for Gretzky? Like I think it's going to be probably, if not, atop the list of like most polarizing conversations over the next couple of years in general in the NHL world.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't need a whole lot more. He's going to play as long as he wants or can. And the way he plays, I don't see why he can't. It's not like he's destroying his body out there, and he still gets it done, man. Like, he could have had 4 last night, no problem. And I mean, he's just not going to retire in the next couple of years out of the blue, and he's like 14 goals away from the all-time. He's going to get it. So it's kind of disappointing to see one of Wayne's records go down. You'd think a lot of his were kind of untouchable, but it just speaks to the way that guy has scored in the last 20 years. It is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you look at some of the numbers that Wayne put up in some of the games. I mean, he's getting 5 goals here and there, and the goaltending wasn't as good, but the sticks weren't as good in the skates and this and that. But I do think it's more difficult to score right now, and I don't think it would be, out of the realm of, reality to just call him the greatest goal scorer of all time up until this point.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. He's 51 goals back at Gretzky. I think this ties in perfectly to some news we got for the GM meetings yesterday that the NHL has signed on to do a behind-the-scenes series with Amazon that will center on 10 to 12 star players. Like, I think this writes itself. I think one of those players has to be Alex Ovechkin, more so because of the chase, right? And he's got the personality too. He's the one guy I would identify for sure.
Yeah, for sure. He's one of the faces of the league, has been a long time. He's won a cup and got that off his back. He is the face. He's basically the owner of the Washington Capitals, does whatever he wants. And he is, there's always been cameras on Ovi since he came into the league, and he could hardly speak English, and it's gotten a little bit better, but he's just polarizing to watch. He'll be one of the guys for sure. You try to go down the lineup and see like guys that would work well with a show like that who have personality and kind of stand out a little bit. And obviously, William Nylander to me stands out as a guy that would probably prosper in that role.
Yeah, I think Nylander would be a guy. I think Austin Matthews. I think everybody wants to know like what Matthews does on a daily basis, how he preps himself for a game. I think they'd be really, really cool. But I think Nylander would be on that list. I think there'd be a couple different guys, quite frankly, from the Maple Leafs. Right away when I saw that, like Jack Hughes came to mind. Those type of players, like even like Sidney Crosby came to mind. I know people want to see it, but like he is just really, really he's good at hockey. Like there's nothing, and I credit Crosby and his camp. Has there ever been anything negative outside of hockey said about Sidney Crosby and his illustrious career? I think it's incredible in this day and age with cameras and phones and all that stuff. Like nothing PR wise negative comes out about Crosby. It's insane to me.
Yeah, and I think he lives pretty clean. I don't think he's hiding a whole lot, but just from a young age, I mean, I knew players that played with him and lived with him. And I mean, when he's younger, if he's kind of out or doing anything like that, he's just very careful about it. And he's been coached to, hey, your image is very important and anything you do will be scrutinized. And, as an older man, I don't think there's much of an issue anymore. You're not running around getting in trouble or anything like that. But he's just anything. Like I've been at weddings with him before and having beers and stuff, and he kind of knows when to and when not to, and he's just not one of those idiots that gets himself in trouble where you're looking at it and go, why would a guy like that put himself in that position? And he's obviously one of those guys with his head screwed on straight. But yeah, I can't say that he's going to be the most exciting guy on the face of the planet. McDavid as well. Like, do you think you can get a soundbite that's even usable off of that guy? And these guys are fantastic in everything that they do. But if you're talking about like a Netflix, Amazon series, like, a kid like Trevor Zegras just acting like a total, Generation Z weirdo to a lot of the guys, I think it would just, even whether you like it or not or whatever, it's just more polarizing and it's going to make for better TV. So I'm sure they'll be looking for those kind of guys, but you're going to get your John Tavares type of quotes out of the McDavids and stuff, I'm sure as well.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because all the best players in the world are cut from the same cloth. I mean, McKinnon to an extent, like watching Connor Bedard, the way he speaks, I'm like, this guy's been hanging out with Crosby and McDavid, you would think for years. I agree with producer Vic. You need some goalies in the mix there. Like, I think there's a variety of different routes you can go. David Pastrnak comes to mind, but specifically Nylander, I would love to see that. It's sort of fascinating and unique too, because actually last night I sat down and watched the Kelsey documentary on Amazon, like where it takes you behind the scenes of what he thought was going to be his final season and starting a new podcast. And I won't lie, by the end, I don't know if there was some fucking onions in the room, man. Like they did it well. I thought it was
Softy.
brilliantly done. I don't usually get emotional when it comes to documentaries and videos, but I thought it was really, really well done. I think that would have to be the focus of anything you put out there. Try to extract as much personality as possible. You look at the Kelsey brothers, they bring it daily basis. They got the great podcast. It would be so awesome if the NHL can get to that level where you have players you can market personality wise, man. I hate to compare it to the NBA. I was fucking dying the other day. That Grady Dick picture that came out. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw some about it. Go ahead
So
though. I'm not very.
the other player's last name was Black. Grady Dick's last name is obviously Dick. So they got together for a picture. I thought it was just genius. Like it's just one of those funny things, you know?
Yeah, little things like that. I mean, if we sat down for a half an hour, we could come up with a whole bunch of storylines if we put our heads together that would be
Yeah.
good. I hope they nail those and go down to Nashville and show what it's like around there and that town and city and get Carrie Underwood in there with doing something, whatever. Like just try to make it, show as much as there is possible. I'm sure Gary will get his hands in there and be pumping Mullet Arena, talking about how
Yeah.
incredible an atmosphere it is, some stupid thing like that. But I'm looking forward to that anytime. I mean, I'm a documentary guy. I watch that more than
Yeah.
anything. I like good doc, sports or otherwise. So anything they're doing in the NHL, like that 24/7 was one of the best things
So
that
good.
I have seen, man. Like I would watch those. I was in the league at the time and I was like, man, did they ever capture it, man? Like on the bus, on the plane, in the hotel rooms, in the treatment room, going to see the doctor, practice after practice, working out, treatment, eating, like just crazy. I was like, man, they are really into it, and they did it very well. So I hope it's similar to that, and the way they're running documentaries this day and age, I think it'll end up being awesome. I would hope
Man, I
so
want to
anyway.
see an after dark. I would love a camera on Nylander, Matthews. You get a night off in, I don't know, fucking Nashville. I want to see what these guys do, where they head off, who they talk to. Man, I think
You
that'd
could
be incredible.
you could follow Mitch Marner and like figure out his wardrobe for Coachella and what kind of hat he's gonna wear and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. No comment. Marner's still hurt, by the way. We're going to get to him. But the Leafs Nation After Dark with Zach Phillips. Make sure to check that out tonight as the Leafs take on the Flyers the second time in less than a week at the Leafs Nation 401. If you're watching right now, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Again, Carlo Colaiacovo of TSN coming up in about 20 minutes from now. Brought to you by DoorDash. It's time for the appetizer. For a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off, up to $10 in value, and zero delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more. When you download the DoorDash app, enter code NATION25. That's code NATION25. All in uppercase, 25% off your first order with DoorDash. Offer valid in Canada, subject to change. Terms apply. So a variety of different notes from practice on Monday, by the way. Doesn't appear Ilya Lyubushkin's going to play, considered doubtful due to illness. Looks like Simone Benoit is going to get back in there first and foremost.
Yeah, I mean, this bloody bug that's going around that won't quit. It's been a long time knocking guys out of the lineup. But on the plus side of things, we get to see Benoit back in. And, we've talked about him and his impact and him playing over his head. Not over his head, I don't want to say that, over his expectations, which is impressive in Toronto and something that guys really struggle to do. So I'm kind of fingers crossed that he has a big game, plays really solid, no hiccups, plays physical, is a big part of a win, and then, forces Sheldon Keefe's hand to keep him in the lineup. Because I want to ask Coco if he thinks that they can go into the playoffs without Benoit in the lineup right now and how that would happen, how that would look. But it's a chance for him tonight, no doubt.
It is. And these are the pairings at least we saw at practice on Monday. Riley Brody, Benoit McCabe, Edmondson Liljegren. We're at a point where Sheldon Keefe has tried every pairing possible, including Connor Timmins in that conversation. So it's like, yeah, Riley and Brody are staying together until free agency pretty much.
I was going to say, what do you think about the Riley Brody pairing? I just, like, he's got a bit of a, he's been pulled off the first power play. I guess we might be getting to that, but he's been
Yeah.
demoted a little bit. I know it's kind of like half-hearted. Like when Keefe does these things, it's kind of like just empty threats from a
Grain
parent
of salt.
where you're like, you're gonna take away all your toys. And the kid's just like, yeah, okay, I'm sure that'll happen. You can go pretend to get a garbage bag, but let's be honest, that's not happening. And I think it might be the same with Morgan Riley. Okay, I'll start off on the second unit PP like we were talking about yesterday, and then what'll it last? You say the over under at 2 power plays before he's back on the unit. So I don't know, man. The consistency's not there, and I don't know if he uses that as like a motivating tool or a punishment thing by mixing up the lines and then just going right back to it. It's like, what was your aim in changing that if you weren't committed to it? Like it loses all face value if you just constantly do this and then just blend them up again in like literally a handful of shifts.
Dude, it's incredible because I'm sure you recall in your playing days, like when did coaches change the lines? Like when you're looking to get the team going, not every fucking game, right?
No, not very often. Like when things aren't working and when you
Yeah.
need to try a new formula, and it would be a couple of weeks here and then maybe we'll go back to this formula and then finally settle into, okay, well, we've kind of looked at everything. We've gotten an idea and a feel, and this seems to be the best formula, and away we go and try to make that as good as we can chemistry wise. And it's just like there's just no opportunity to do that because I've never seen it this much jumbling of lines, power plays, pairings. It's like at some point in time you have to figure out this is the best combo. Now let's just really see if we can refine it. But it just doesn't. It's like that's not even an option, and it wasn't last year either. And I've said it before, but that's my one big gripe with Sheldon Keefe is the lack of consistency. I don't understand how you're supposed to get the chemistry going and the momentum going, which is huge for this team when you have no consistency. It feels like you're alone on the island all the time because guys are coming and going and you don't really feel a part of anything, where We were talking about Grabovski. Was it Grabovski, Kuhlman, and MacArthur? Like,
Yeah.
there's a weird combo you never would have thought, but you stuck with it, and they found something, and then off they go with this crazy, crazy chemistry. I don't think this team has ever had the opportunity to get really buzzing with lines and find like super chem and really dominate and learn each other because they never play with the same people.
It's funny, like Donnie Does Dishes makes actually weirdly enough a good point. Like Babcock never changed the line. So you go from Babcock to Sheldon Keefe, where like on a game by game, shift by shift, he changes lines where at times it feels like a big brain operation and it shouldn't be. I mean, I think at this point, you know what you have, especially from your nucleus, especially from your core guys. But as mentioned, the new power play units, you got PP1, Lilligren, Matthews, Tavares, Nylander, Bertuzzi, then PP2, Riley, Domi, McMahon, Robertson, Nyes. Just looking on paper at PP2, I think there's some cause for concern defensively with that 5-pack out there. I just see some of those names. I'm like, this might not go well.
Yeah, and also it's they have been victim to giving up odd man rushes, breakaways, shorthanded goals like crazy on the power play. So not ideal, but I understand changing things up right now. You got to get
Sure.
that power play kicking. Like, here's a time where you absolutely have to throw some new things in the mix, break some guys up, introduce something that you haven't tried before. I totally get that when things are crazy struggling. But there's times where we're like, oh, this is an interesting line combination with this second line here. And it's 10 minutes into the first period and they're gone. It's like, what did you not like so much out of 3 shifts that you wanted to see before the game started that now you're gonna, like, these guys prepared together and practiced together, and he just blows them up and bails on it way too quickly and too easy to pull the pin and mix around. And I don't know if it's like, it almost kind of looks like desperation, like you're out of ideas and you're trying to find something and you just do it all year long. I did it last year right up until the playoffs. I don't totally agree with it, and I don't know, maybe a John Tavares could go in there and be like, hey, we need to start finding some consistency in the lineup. Like, there's a guy that could use his, you know, the way he speaks and handles himself and his leadership qualities and his experience to try to put an end to that. But I don't know. Maybe they don't feel the same way about it I do. It's just hard to believe because my entire experience shows that guys don't love that.
No, when it comes to John Tavares, it's about learning lessons, right? So, what can they learn from the lessons and the mistakes they make on the power play? And they're making a lot of them right now. One for the last 24 in the last 9 games. Couldn't agree with you more. I think you try different combinations. You try to get some guys going. I just want Matthews to shoot the puck, man. Find fucking 34, shoot the puck. We just talked about Alex Ovechkin. Everybody knows Matthews is going to shoot the puck. They still can't stop it. I think you simplify it. I think when the Leafs get in trouble, power play wise, is when they try this hoochie cutesy shit where they're just like behind the back. Like, that shit doesn't work in the playoffs. Okay. That's the biggest difference with this team in the playoffs. They always have a great power play, gets to the playoffs. They're trying that pretty shit. Just put the puck in the net, get Bertuzzi in front of the net, like, kick it old school, man. There's no problem with simplifying the game, but they don't really want to do that, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's kind of an attitude of like, don't get me wrong, they're trying, but it just kind of seems like laid back and wait for your moment and kind of wait to see if I can finesse
It's
something
cerebral.
in
Yeah.
there. And it's like, fucking go. Like, drive to the front, open up a lane, have a guy go into the net, that back door to Matthews, pull a guy towards you, and boom, make the play. Like, not this, let me feel this out. And they just sit back and it just does
Yeah.
not work clearly with the numbers that they're putting up lately. So a little bit of mentality change. I always feel silly talking about the power play and what to do because I am not a power play type of guy. I
Yeah.
don't have a ton of experience on it, but I've seen a lot of them. I've watched a lot of them. I've seen what works and I've seen what doesn't. And even if this team's the only one I've watched, you can look and just kind of see the holes from up top. It's easy watching from TV. And that's why it gives so many fans, such strong opinions. But something towards, the power play and the mentality they have towards it, they got to try something different because these numbers are ugly, man. And that's a huge part of the game, especially the playoffs.
Yeah, even the PK. I want to see something from the PK tonight, but let's be honest, we're not reinventing the wheel here. You have one more player than the opposition. Just work around that, and it should be pretty simple. And I think simplifying it would work for the Maple Leafs. I don't know about you. I'm starting to get a bit concerned about the Mitch Marner injury situation. Like, conflicting quotes yesterday. I don't know if you saw this. Interview with TSN's Gino Retta at the NHL GM meetings. Brad Treliving said it's in all likelihood a minor injury, but we want to be respectful for it. Hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. And that was after Sheldon Keefe said this at practice. It hasn't been responding the way that they had hoped, so just stepping back a little bit with it. What? Like, what way are we going with this? And dude, Thursday's going to be 2 weeks since we last saw Mitch Marner. He hasn't skated in 2 weeks. So, like, they're not
That
telling us
long?
something.
Well, I don't want to hit like the conspiracy button because I think if you listen to what they're saying, I think that what they're saying is kind of surprising, but I think it's the truth. And we've talked about high ankle sprains this year with Joseph Wall. They're finicky, they don't heal well, and nobody knows how a guy's going to respond. Like, he also said we're day to day from being day to day, and people are like, have you ever heard that in your life? And it's like he's trying to give you the best information he can give you with what he knows. Nobody knows how he's going to respond. He's going to wake up and be like, it's just not like, I feel like I took a step back today. Brutal. Or else, man, like whatever that treatment was yesterday really responded well. I feel like 25% better today. Nobody knows. So this coach is trying to say what this kid's body's going to do. He doesn't know. He's trying to give accurate information. But as we've talked about, these high ankle sprains are a pain in the ass. They take a long time to heal. And I'm taking it for face value. And I believe it. They thought he was going to be back in an X. It's not responding well. It's being a pain in the ass, which high ankle sprains are, and it's taken a little bit longer, and they're not going to rush him for any reason at all this close to the playoffs. So I'm taking it at face value. I kind of believe what they're saying. It makes sense to me, and they're trying to get him back, but this thing's not responding.
Well, why don't we ask today's guest? This segment is brought to you by Tim Hortons. Roll Up to Win is back for Tim's 60th anniversary. And to celebrate their big year, you can win some big prizes like an all-electric Volkswagen ID4, a sun-soaked Hilton getaway, and cash with a daily jackpot of $10,000. Play today on the Tim's app as you bring in Carlo Colaiacovo. What's going on, Coco?
Boys, what's happening? And
How are we?
just to continue on your Tim Hortons read there, I'm not sure if you guys heard me this morning, but I had a little accident on the air, taking a
Did
sip
you?
out
What
of my
happened?
coffee. So I'm not a coffee drinker, but these last 2 weeks, my life has been sort of thrown upside down. I got a lot going on family wise in the house and stuff like that. So my schedule is out of whack. So I've resorted to drinking coffee in the morning because I'm not sleeping the same. Every day is sort of different. And so I put a Keurig machine in my basement outside of my office, and I've been having my favorite flavor, French vanilla coffee. And this morning, and I'm not a coffee guy. I don't drink coffee. I don't do anything in the morning. I sort of intermittent fast. So I wait till 12 o'clock to eat. So this has been a new routine for me. And when I do drink coffee, I love it iced. Okay. So
Yeah.
with ice in it or cold. So my Keurig machine's a fraud because it says ice, there's an iced button and it comes out scalding hot. So I went to take a sip of my coffee while I was on the air and I burnt the inside of my mouth. So I went blah, right on the air. So
Shit.
yeah,
Not good
that's
for a
it.
guy who has to talk for a living, Carter.
Right? That's why I don't like drinking hot coffee. Burns everything in your mouth.
Man,
Including
that's a
your
tough
insides.
go, but it has me thinking about that Amazon Prime series. I think you'd probably be one of those guys I want to see. Like, I mean, we talked about Carlisle and the toaster all those years ago, right?
Yeah. There's some funny stories back in the day. And Rosie, I would imagine you heard them when you played in Philly about Ken Hitchcock and the bagels.
Oh, oh, I love when guys like Hartnell try to do his accent or do his
Oh,
voice. My
yeah.
goodness, you're just
Come
in
on,
tears.
guys. Don't mess with my
Seriously.
bagels.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, I try to get Hitch on this show, man. I got iced, man. Speaking of ice,
Really?
man, just nothing from Kenny Hitchcock. I guess that's what happens when you're Hall of Famer. But Coco, let's get into the conversation we were just having. Mitch Marner, like, where are you at? Because man, like on Thursday, it's going to be 2 weeks since he last skated, right?
Yeah, well, the longer this goes, the more you start to get a little bit more concerned about it. And I was on the broadcast on Thursday. We were doing the game on TSN where Dregs actually revealed what it is he was dealing with. And the minute he said high ankle sprain, mild, serious, light, I mean, this isn't a fun thing to come back from. So, and especially when you're talking about Mitch Marner, when you watch him play, like a lot of his brilliance comes from the way he skates on his edges, right? I mean, the way he opens up those hips, the way he controls the puck. So I think the luxury that the Maple Leafs have afforded themselves right now is that they can sit him out games without having to have too much of a worry about the impact of wins and losses, right? And so, the good side of it is in 3 games he's been out, they've scored 13 goals. So they haven't really missed much of that offense. And look, I mean, everybody who watches the Maple Leafs knows how impactful Mitch Marner is to this team. I think he's the most important player on this team because of all of the areas of games that he affects, defensively, offensively with the power play, the way he controls the puck through the neutral zone, 5-on-6, 6-on-5. Like he's always the guy on the ice. And so and you can see with the record that they have with him in the lineup, over his career without him in the lineup versus other guys in the team, clearly he's the guy that is the most impactful. So you're talking about his injury right now. The fact that he's not skating doesn't make me believe that he's anywhere close to returning. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Okay. Let's pump the brakes here. It's concerning because of what he's dealing with, but the timing of this is probably, best suited for where they are right now. Better to deal with this now than closer to the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think you mess around with those things, especially with a player like him and this close to the playoffs. So, people are
Yeah.
kind of mashing the panic button, but what else do you want them to say if it is what they say it is?
Right.
There's no conspiracy. What do you want them to say? It's not
Yeah.
responding well. It's going to be a little bit longer. Hopefully, like if it continues to get a little bit better, then we can start saying it's day to day. Like not the end
Yeah.
of the world, but speaking of lineup issues, Simon Benoit is going to get back in the lineup here, and we've been talking a lot about left-handed defenseman, right-handed defenseman. We wanted to ask you, how big of a deal is it for a guy to be playing on his offhand? What are some of the challenges and maybe benefits? And how do you think they're maneuvering that with, such limited righties?
Well, they're maneuvering it in their best way that they can based on their options, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you saw them try to go out and they got Lyubushkin. They tried to address bringing in another right hand defense, and the problem is, we talked to Mark Mathot this morning, who watches Ottawa play. They don't have any right-handed shot defensemen, too. Like it's sort of something that across the league everybody would want more of, and I think, look, back when we played, when the game was slower, I don't think it was that big of an issue. You just put the guys out there that can get the job done. You saw more guys play it with more efficiency. Nowadays, with the speed of the game, and I know even the tail end of my career, where I always volunteered to play the right side because if it allowed me to stay in the lineup, I was willing to make that sacrifice. But I always felt more comfortable on my strong side because of the pace of the game, right? Everything's in front of you. You can't hold up for guys anymore. So, when you're trying to make a backhanded play into the middle of the ice, your vision's not that great. Trying to gap up on guys where you're maybe stronger pivoting on one side versus the other side. It's a big challenge, right? I think there is validity to it with the way people are talking about it because you see, I mean, TJ Brody's a great example. He's a guy through the early part of his career could do it. As he's getting older, maybe a little bit slower, he's struggling with it. Look how good he played on the left side. It's almost seemed like the game is simpler for those guys. So, in a perfect world, yeah, you want 3 left-handed and 3 right-handed shot defensemen. They don't have a perfect scenario for them, so they just got to go with, whatever they have and try to make the best of it. Now, I never believed that Benoit should have been the guy coming out of the lineup with the acquisitions of Lyubushkin and Edmondson. I mean, this guy is the best story on the Maple Leafs this year.
I know.
When you talk about what he came in for, on contract, talk about, the fact that nobody really knew much about him because he played in Anaheim, and a guy who's had to earn his role on this team. I thought he's done a tremendous job doing it, especially with the way that he plays. He brings that physical element, likes to mix it up. I always love watching those guys that, make life hard on defensemen or make a life hard on forwards in front of the net. He's one of those guys. I actually thought, maybe it was a good time to give Brody a break or use
Oh yeah.
Liljegren as a guy. Because, look, people can say what they want about Liljegren. I've never really been on the Liljegren bus. I've always seen the potential, but how much like there's only so much that potential can get you, right? I mean, this is a guy that's been given every opportunity to be a top pairing defenseman, a top four defenseman. Every time they give him that role, he doesn't seem to grasp it. And then, the last 2 seasons, he's a guy that plays all season and they can't play in the playoffs. Well, why? There's a reason why they can't play in the playoffs, because I just don't think you get his best hockey when the game gets tougher. And that's not changing my mind this year. And look, I know he's getting another great opportunity now running the first line PP. Yes, he brings offense, but is this a guy you can really trust in a series versus Boston and versus Florida to give you the type of play that you need from their defenseman?
Absolutely not, right? I couldn't agree more. Like, I think you get to the postseason, it's a different game, and I just don't think he factors in. Hell, I
And
think there
Nick,
could
we get reminded of that every year. Every
and the
year
same
we get reminded of this postseason is a completely different season than the regular season.
Yeah, and then he keeps coming back with him, right? I was gonna
Yeah.
ask you too about Keith. Like, what's your general assessment? Because often we talk about credibility on this show, and we talk about teaching moments and all that stuff, and going back to the well and holding players accountable. But to me, he just picks his spots. Like, I mean, Brody's made so many mistakes, and then like
Yeah.
the first move he makes is taking Benoit out. I think you lose credibility in that room, does he?
Well, I wonder how much of that is a coach's decision versus, a management team decision,
Sure.
right? Um, because he's a guy that's, let's be honest, through his whole career and even through the early part of career here, has played that role, right? And I always hated that when I was a defenseman. It's like, okay, I played a role that I wasn't happy with, but I played it because I knew what I needed to do or why I needed to do it to stay on the team, but it's not something that I want to do. Make an example of somebody else. But that's sort of how hockey is run, man. Once you get that label on you, or once you're put into that conversation, coaches or management don't want to entertain those new situations with somebody new, right? I mean, because they have guys that have been there and have done it and have been able to accept it and understand their role. You take that, not now, you start exploring that role with a TJ Brody who's never really been that guy. How are you setting yourself up for playoffs? So I kind of understand it. And look, I know there's people that have their own feelings about Sheldon Keefe. I don't feel the same way that most people do. I actually think Sheldon Keefe is a really good coach, and I think his record proves, it speaks for itself. Look at all like, and the thing about the Maple Leafs is that I know there's a lot of frustration in the fan base because of their playoff success, but with all the changes this team makes on a year-to-year basis because of the formula that they've created with their star players and how they want to build around them. Look at all the success they've had as a team. I know it's been a lot of regular season success, but it's still success. Measure that against a lot of the other teams in the National Hockey League who have not been a top 5 team consistently on a year-to-year basis, who have not had the same lineup adjustments or lineup changes that the Maple Leafs have. I think a lot of that credit goes to the coach. And another good example is, you got Kyle Dubas, who orchestrated this team with Sheldon Keefe at the helm. Kyle Dubas goes to Pittsburgh with some star-studded players, a really good coach, can't replicate that same success. So I think, look, not everyone's going to be happy with the decisions the coaches make on a daily basis, but we don't know what goes on behind the scenes that factors into those decisions. But if you look at the results and the process along the way, I mean, Bertuzzi's having a better year now. Domi's having a better year now. McMahon has come to surface. I think Matthew Knies' best hockey is in front of him. I think Sheldon Keefe has done a really, really good job. I think he's a really good coach. And what I do like about him, and you talk about accountability, I don't necessarily see accountability with guys that are in the lineup. And yes, a lot of people measure that. I measure accountability based on decisions made within games. And that's what I like about him. Guys that are going, he gives them better opportunity. Guys that aren't going, he's like, okay, you're not going tonight, so I'm not going to play you.
Yeah, fair enough. What about moving to the crease here? It looks like Ilya Samsonov is kind of doing the routine here at optional pregame skate of a starter. Is it his crease right now? And do you think Wool's given kind of a good enough opportunity to get his feet under him after his injury this year?
I think it's absolutely his crease. And because he's playing like he deserves the crease. And I don't focus too much on the goalie situation here in Toronto. I trust both guys. If you asked me at the
Yeah.
beginning of the season, I said that at the end of the season, Wall is going to be the guy. He's going to be the guy going to the playoffs. I actually believe Joseph Wall one day will be a Vezina candidate. Like, that's how strong I feel about Wall. But unfortunately, he had an injury this year that set him back. And what I get encouraged about when I talk about Samsonov is, man, how much credit do we have to give this guy for finding his game in the middle of the season? Like, this guy was a complete write-off, like, in the month of December. You couldn't throw him at me. Any of us could have done a better job in that. And we don't even play the position. Okay. And so, whatever they did in their reset and whatever he's done to change his routine and find his form again, man, this guy deserves a huge round of applause because he's playing at an unbelievable level right now. And when you look at goaltending, like, I think the goaltending position is changing across the NHL. Okay. Because gone are the days, and even Vasilevsky too. Like, you can't play guys 65, 70 games anymore and expect them to be at the top of their game every one of those games. I actually believe goalies work harder in practice than they do in games. Right? I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen a practice. Rosie, you've been involved in practice. The stuff they do before practice, the stuff they do during practice, the stuff they do after practice, like, that's not even measure the type of workload these guys get in games. And now you're factoring games played and stuff like that. So I still believe that Joseph Wall will be given a runway here down the stretch because you don't want to burn Samsonov out. But as long as Samsonov is playing the way that he is, he's earning those starts, he's earning the position in net. You go with him. You absolutely go with him. And let's not forget, this guy helped the Maple Leafs win a playoff series last year. Like,
Yep.
that's something in 19 years no other goalie could do.
Yeah, and it's the beauty of this game and this market too, where like 2 weeks from now, I could see a pathway where we're talking about Joseph Wall in a different light. So only time will tell on that front, Coco.
And there's
Thank you so
still a
much for
lot
the
of
time
time to
today.
figure that out.
Yeah,
There is.
exactly. There's so much racetrack between now and the end of the season. We appreciate your time today, man.
Pleasure being on with you, boys, man. Have a great
Thanks,
weekend.
Coco.
You
You
as
too,
well.
man.
Take care. There is Carlo Colaiacovo, of course, former Maple Leaf, former Philadelphia Flyer. Looking forward to this one. A bit stunned, I won't lie, that it's going to be Samsonov, it sounds like, or it looks like.
Yeah, I agree with Coco. It seems like it is his crease, and I think he's earned it. I don't know. Maybe if they're just saying, in our minds, we're not gonna push Wool. It's Sammy right now. The future is bright for Wool, and he'll have many opportunities to get that crease. But I think their eggs might be in the basket of Sammy. I thought it'd be more of a little bit of a race, but it seems like they're just handing everything to Sammy here to continue on with his form, which it's kind of hard to argue with. So away we go. I'm sure Woolsey will get his reps, and we'll see what he looks like. But it does seem like at this point in time, it is Sammy's crease.
Every All-Star needs a sidekick to support them, just like every Wendy's meal needs a 6-piece of nuggets. And right now, Wendy's is teaming up with Daily Face-Off Fantasy to bring you weekly prizes like free nuggets, burgers, and more. So if you think you're an expert in all things hockey, prove it. And if you aren't already, start adding a 6-piece to your Wendy's order for just $3.49. It's the dynamic duo even you never saw coming. Sign up for Daily Face-Off today, sponsored by Wendy's and the Wendy's app. By the way, on the Philadelphia side, Samuel Ersson, who was pulled on Thursday in that 6-2 beatdown, expected to get the call. And on top of that, the biggest difference from last Thursday night's outing, John Tortorella's back. Of course, was suspended 2 games. And I'd love to get your take on this because I think it's so fascinating. Philadelphia is in a playoff spot, and it looks like Torts is benching all of his vets. Sean Couturier, the captain, out. Cam Atkinson, an assistant, out. Mark Stahl, a leader on that team, out in favor of younger blood. What do you make of that?
I think it's a big old message sender at a pivotal time in the season. I think that he has probably had a problem with complacency, is what that tells me. He's probably giving the reins to the younger guys who are frothing at the mouth, chomping at the bit, just ready to go through a wall. And he wants to look over at the vets and say, hey, remember that shit? We need more out of that still out of you guys. But very big message to send to bench your vets, your captain. Coots has been there forever. Coots does everything the right way, but something in Torts' mind is tweaked right now, and he's obviously sitting down the big boys to watch one. and we'll see what comes of it. I imagine these younger guys that are getting the opportunity are going to be absolutely buzzing and trying to impress Torts. So it wouldn't surprise me if they came out hotter than a pistol, but at the same time, it's possible they could get overwhelmed by the skill and just skill of the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight.
Night and day. And again, I'm not trying to compare teams because any of those guys we just referenced nowhere close to like the Nylanders, the Matthewses, the Tavares of the world. But like a coach setting message, accountability.
Crazy.
Like it's Sean Couturier was named captain like 15 games ago. I think he's got like 3-4 points. Like it just hasn't been good enough. And Torts doesn't care if you're the captain. Having said that, there's a shelf life everywhere John Tortorella goes. It's going to hit, whether it's a year from now, 6 months from now. It's just a fact of the matter. But I do think Torts is a good coach, and the numbers, everything proves it. I think you look specifically, Rosie, at this matchup. A couple things stick out. The Leafs have 8 straight victories against Philadelphia. I know you don't like looking back at previous meetings. 7 straight overs have hit between the two teams. The Leafs, excellent on the road, 27-6 so far in the campaign. And we talked about Thursdays. If you do recall, Rocky Thompson, the assistant, little pissed off that Sheldon Keefe threw on the first power play unit in a 5-1 game or whatever it was, 6-1 game late. Do you think there'll be any pushback from that? Because the one thing I did notice at practice, at least, Ryan Reeves was back in the Maple Leafs lineup, and Noah Gregor, who played on Saturday, was out again.
Yeah, and I don't like comparing going back previous seasons. I don't mind previous games within the season. But yeah, I don't think there's going to be a lot of fireworks. I don't think like icing your best PP against the players is something that gets their backup saying, we're going to show you. It's almost like embarrassing to the players. Like that kind of shows up a coach more than the players. The players kind of have their pride in saying, I don't give a shit who's out there, what power play their best players. Like it's embarrassing to get blown out and then be like, can you not use your best guys against us? That never comes from the players. It's always from the coaches. So I don't expect much of a response from that. And Revo's in the lineup. He overwhelms anything that they have over there. So if they want to play that style, Revo will be there. But I don't expect much to come from that. I am just interested to see how this Flyers team responds to the message sending from Torts here, and obviously how the Leafs start this game, and if they're ready to put the hammer down and find something. Like every game's an opportunity to find a little magic, to get hot, to get on board with your line mates or your unit or whatever you're looking at. Need a big one here tonight. You need to keep that stat line going against the Philadelphia Flyers.
Man, to me, that's absolutely wild, John Tortorella. Like, this is game 69, nice, on the season for Philadelphia. They're clinging to their playoff lives. They have 76 points. The Capitals win last night. They have 75 points. The Islanders at 73. Like, they really, really need this game.
It's
and
crazy.
to take
It's
guys,
a big story. Huge story.
pardon me?
It's a huge story to yank
Yeah.
these guys at this point in time. This is
I know.
a big ballsy. He's the only guy in the league that would do this. The only guy in the league that would do it. And it's because he clearly doesn't give a shit about much. He's confident in himself. He's been there forever. He's got Stanley Cups and Jack Adams awards. He does not give a shit. He's sending a huge message. It's actually very surprising.
I don't know. It can go one of two ways. I think there's going to be either a response from Philadelphia, or it's like, fuck, how do you do this to us? Like, again, I know these guys have been playing well, but I don't know how you take them out of the lineup. Like, they're everything to the Flyers.
I know. I'm trying to think of the Betano wrap up here. I mean, I know the over has been hitting a lot, so you can look at that. But it's like, do I just absolutely mash the Leafs, or are these young guys going to come out with such piss and vinegar that they're going to pull off one of those? And Torts is going to look at, see, boys, that's how it's supposed to be done, and that's the big message that he wanted to send. Obviously, he feels confident that it can be done. This is not a throwaway game for them, so makes me scratch my head a little bit, but another interesting move out of John Tortorella, which there's never a shortage of.
Never a dull moment in Tortsland. And you talk about that Amazon series. I'd like them to follow just John Tortorella. I know he's not a player, but that would be a very unique content for sure. We've seen it before. The Betano wrap-up presented by Betano.ca. The game starts now, 19+. Please play responsibly. Major announcement. Betano is the official partner of Copa America 2024, taking the beautiful game to new heights in the Americas. Join Betano on their journey of passion, unity, and unforgettable football moments. So again, as mentioned, the Leafs 8 straight victories against Philadelphia, 7 straight overs. Anything particularly that you like? I'd probably hit the Austin Matthews anytime goal. I saw a funny article. Why can't he score against good teams? Like, I don't know what we're doing. The guy's got 3 billion goals. Like, we're just creating content, I guess.
Creating more pressure, controversy.
Content creation, Rosie. It's 2024. We're all content creators.
I don't like that shit. Create content with the content that exists. Don't make shit up. But he's cooled off a little bit. The 70 talk is gone. That's fine. Yeah, it'd be nice for him to get one, get rocking, get the team going. Maybe even pick Austin Matthews' first goal scorer of the night. That would be some big fat value. If you're gonna put the eggs in any basket, it would be Austin to me. And yeah, I could see him getting going again here soon. And we still got what 15 to 14 some games left. There's time ticking, but come down the last 5 games, you may, whether they're resting guys or not, I think it's nice to see a guy get a little momentum going, so he's feeling really confident going into the playoffs.
My call of the night, the Maple Leafs will score on the power play, because I could envision a very horny Philadelphia team trying to make a difference, trying to prove they're pissed off last Thursday. They're going to take a dumb penalty. The Leafs are way too talented, even without Mitch Marner. I think they find their way when you have JT, who's pretty much a power play presence at this point in his career. You got Matthews, you got Nylander. I think the Leafs find a way. 1 for the last 24 on the power play. And again, there's a reason why they've boasted one of the top power play units in the league for the last 7 years. So I think tonight's a good night for that power play to get cooking.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good bet. It's a matter of time before they kind of break that open and get one again. So are you taking the Leafs? I'm kind of like, I want to like mash the Leafs with the lineup changes that Philly did. I'm just a little hesitant of these young piss and vinegar fellas coming out buzzing.
Yeah, because even like the over is something I would smash, but then like you saw what transpired last Thursday, then Erson's getting a shot again at the Leafs. I think it's pretty good value, minus 130. What I'm seeing on the Leafs right now, it's not, the price is not as juiced as you would think, and I think what's baked into the price is the fact that Philadelphia direly needs this one. Like, it's still plus money on Philadelphia, but they really need this one in terms of the standings. But I think at minus 130, I think you look at the Leafs and that price and say, let's hit it. Especially the way Samsonov's playing and the way this team is feeling right now.
There you go. Let's do it. I'm gonna mash it.
Okay, Rosie, we'll be back for tomorrow's show. Obviously, we'll recap this Leafs Flyers game and the second game of the back-to-back, where, again, if Samsonov starts this one, it's going to be Joseph Woll, and they're taking on a red-hot Washington Capitals team in the first game back from a Western Canadian road trip for the Capitals. You know what that means? Bad news for the Capitals. The numbers suggest us. Hopefully, we're right on that front. We'll talk tomorrow, bud.
Sounds good. Let's see how these Leafs do.
Yeah, let's see how they do against Philadelphia. Second battle in less than a week. Many thanks to Carlo Colaiacovo, everybody in the chat at the Leafs Nation 401. Please subscribe, hit that like button as well. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcasts. And thank you to producer Vic. That's Jay Rosehill. I'm Nick Alberga, and we'll talk tomorrow. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.